Alright, good morning. It is 9 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. Where are we? Let's see. July 8th. Give me 1 second. Because they're changing everything around, I'm figuring out how to find a link for the live feed. It's a little more challenging to get actually a link to the live feed now because they've moved stuff around. But I was sending it to Benjamin, and looks like he's on. Let me turn this fan off. Benjamin said I should look like a robot. Okay. Why should I look like a robot, Benjamin? Just for fun. Okay. Benjamin, if you could let me know if the audio or video is lagging at all. It looks like it's coming in good on my end, but the audio is real weird. Dinesh said, okay, let me, is that any better? Is the audio any better? I have to switch back to the mic. I'm gonna have to play around because I have it in my, I think the audio is kind of weird. Alright, I'm gonna switch it. There we go. This is coming from the computer mic. Is this any better? Does this sound? Checking 1, 2. What I'll do tomorrow is I'll have Larissa hop on her phone and give me some live feedback. Try to get this thing working.
Doing it with the mic on the computer is that it picks up some weird background noises a lot of time. It's coming in with low resolution, so your voice is getting chopped up. Okay. So maybe it wasn't the mic. Let me see if I can change some things on here. Please check the video resolution. Alright. Benjamin's saying there we go. Maybe it's kind of corrected. Okay. We'll go with that. Thanks for helping me out, y'all. It's actually been a long day so far. I woke up and watched the sunrise, which is something I've been wanting to do. Tried to do yesterday, but I didn't time my sleep rhythms well. And so I woke up groggy and went back to sleep. But I was able to wake up today and drive down to the water and watch the sunrise over Seattle. It was really beautiful. And then got a long phone call with my friend Wes, just catching up on life and talking about a bunch of good stuff. And now I'm here doing this. Yesterday, I don't know about y'all, but I've been hitting a ton of synchronicities, just like one after the other these last few days. And after I finished talking about boundaries yesterday, I was reading in this book. I don't know if it's reversed, but it says Beginning Our Day. And it's a series of transcribed talks from monks at different monasteries that are connected to the forest tradition that I'm a part of. And most of them are pretty short. And one yesterday was called When Help is Needed by Lungpor Pasano. This was transcribed from a talk August of 2012. And I'm going to read it real quick just because I feel like it's another angle of the boundaries conversation I was having. And it's a little bit of a fun little kind of divine check. And he says, one focus of our practice is to look after each other and help each other out. In one discourse where the Buddha finds Venerable Anuruddha and his friends living in the forest, we see that they're intent on formal practice, but whenever something needs to be done, they come out of meditation and help each other. That is a very beautiful story from the suttas. Our tendency, however, is to try to do everything ourselves, which is usually not so comfortable. But when we learn to help each other, it's much more convenient for everyone. It's like the convenience of using two hands to wash. When one hand is trying to wash itself, the job takes quite a while and is less than thorough. But with two hands washing each other, it's quicker and everything gets clean. Similarly, as human beings living together with duties and chores, we can learn to look out for the many ways we can help one another. A lot of this practice comes from the cultivation of mindfulness, of paying attention. It's so easy to have our blinders on and think, I'm only doing this task, this is what I'm doing. We don't have enough attention and clear comprehension to reflect and ask ourselves, what are other people doing? Do they need assistance? Is there some way I can help? When we reflect like this for the sake of others, it helps us cultivate mindfulness. It is also a way we can help, or we can step outside of ourselves. This is the part that was really interesting. He says, so often we set boundaries, me and my autonomous self. While this can have a useful function, it can also be quite limiting and isolating, and sometimes lead to selfish behavior. What we are doing instead is learning how to let go of the fixation on I, me, and mine, to relinquish that self-centric modality of living in the world. This fixation, the Buddha said, is one of the main sources of suffering. By looking out to see how we can be of assistance to others, we undermine that modality and give ourselves the opportunity to experience well-being. So this was really a really beautiful thing to read. I think I read it maybe 2 hours after I did that talk. So the idea of boundaries was still fresh in my mind, and then I read that. And it was really beautiful, because I feel like if we aren't careful in that process of moving through the uncertainty of relationships, we can set boundaries for really self-centered reasons and kind of self-protective reasons. And instead of setting boundaries so that we're able to be generous, we kind of set boundaries almost to be stingent. Stingent? Is that the right word? Stingy. Stingent. Just created a new word. I feel like it is. Anyways. Yeah, so, I think we're the only ones that can really determine whether we're setting boundaries to set us up to give more, or setting boundaries to kind of protect ourselves and be more egocentric. And I think the whole process of figuring that out is one of kind of emotional and social maturation. So, anyways, I had to share that because it popped back up. Benjamin said stringerity. Anyways, Larissa and I are still continuing our Marvel binging, and that's been super fun. She's up. All right. Let's draw a name from the hat. I didn't get a long sit-in. I got about a 10-minute sit-in today, but had a long walk in the woods with Wesley and probably about an hour just sitting watching the sunrise. So I feel pretty good. Oh, and there's Lola. Come here, Lola. Come here. Oh, she said no. All right, Manni. I'm going to put Manny's name back in here because she gave me a lot of good ones. Let's see which one is numero uno. I think Manny is actually on a road trip right now with two of my best friends. One of them sent me pictures from Montana yesterday. I don't know if that's because they're back or still there. Okay, let me switch to Gmail. Find Manny's. Well, sorry about this. I thought I had. Okay. Oh, that's weird. Number 1 was boundaries. That's funny. I had totally forgot she gave me boundaries, and that's what we started with. I'm telling you, the synchronicities are flowing. Number 2 is shadow work. Jeez. This has been a challenging one for me, a challenging topic to live into in my own life, because when shadow work was first, at least that terminology was used, it was really theoretical. Benjamin said, synchronicity abound. It's good to be in that flow, isn't it, Benjamin? Yeah, so it was really theoretical, and it was hard for me to really get a grasp on like the practicality of shadow work, because it was talked about so much from this idealism, this place of idealism, and a lot of words were used, and it was just hard for me to bring into an actual experience of like, what is shadow work? What does that actually look like? What is my shadow? What's not my shadow? And then when I started practicing, with Buddhist meditation and trying to integrate shadow work with my main practices, that got even more fun. So if I'm really honest, I'm still on a journey of realizing what shadow work is. I guess the first thing I want to say is I will never practice shadow work and uncovering internal shadows outside of intimate relationships. I think it's super dangerous. I think we can kind of get lost in years of unhelpful psychological analyzation and miss the point. I mean, from personal experience, and then I just feel like I've encountered that a lot of people that have done a lot of shadow work, and I start to spend time around them and get to know them and ask them questions and realize that the shadow work that they've done has been like this, not totally, but in a lot of ways has created a whole separate shadow. And for me, the safest way to do that is to find relationships that I know have my utmost good in their heart and allow them to shine lights in places that I might not want them to. And yeah, I was gonna go there, Benjamin. So Benjamin just posted about Carl Jung, who's kind of the person who, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Benjamin, almost created that language that different spiritual communities have run with. I'll go ahead and read this. In Jungian psychology, shadow id, or shadow archetype, refers to unconscious aspects of the personality which the conscious ego does not identify in itself or entirely, or the entirety life of the unconscious. There we go. So there's your textbook definition. And yeah, so I would say it is any part of our personality that we don't have a conscious awareness of, would be our shadows. And kind of a textbook example would be your closet narcissist, or your textbook narcissist and closet narcissist, where they do so many things that they aren't even really aware of. And there's a lot of unchecked, self-centered motives that they don't even kind of know about. And I think we like to label people as narcissists, but the reality is we live in such a narcissistic culture right now that narcissism is kind of a socially acceptable psychological phenomena. And definitely something that I have had a strong desire, especially in my late 20s and early 30s, to turn the mirror on myself. But again, I ground all of that in my relationships, my close relationships that I know will call me out and will be honest with me. But ultimately, it's not to hurt me or wound me or damage me, but it's actually to bring me into my full self, the deeper self and the truer self. So, yeah, what else? It's hard for me to talk about this without talking about mindfulness, because if I'm really honest, the main areas where I do work with my shadows has to do with my meditation practice. And I've developed different ways to practice meditation, but what I'm actually talking about is my sitting practice, where I just sit in silence with myself. And so for me, shadow work actually starts with unburdening my mind, because typically there's this whole stream of thoughts that are just constantly going, and they're not necessarily good or bad, they're just there. And until I'm able to kind of like calm all of this stuff down, and kind of understand what's happening, realize the kind of like exhaustion and burden that those streams of thoughts bring me, and how that happens, I can then realize it's happening and then practice certain things to calm my mind and brighten my mind. And once I get there, then I can start observing certain aspects of my myself and my life, and I can see clearly. It's almost like all of those thoughts that are running are keeping me from actually being able to observe what's actually going on clearly and cleanly. And then I can start really observing it, and then I can learn about it and understand it, and then start to develop some skillful ways to shine light into those shadows, and then take those parts of myself and figure out how to integrate them in a way that's healthy. Thinking about killing two birds with one stone right now. It's a terrible metaphor, but I'm thinking about one of the topics that my friend David put in his, having to do with schizophrenia. Where are we at time-wise? We've been live for 45 minutes. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to wait until it comes up. Yeah, that's kind of, actually, I don't think I've been live for that long. Benjamin or Dinesh, if y'all are still here, will you let me know what my time's at? Yeah, don't kill animals. Because I think I went live 45 minutes ago, but I did it on this application. I'm still getting used to the fact that I've got an application running and YouTube running. And I'm not sure where to go to actually see my timestamp for my streaming. Oh, there it is, 23 minutes. Sorry. I'm figuring this out. A little bit of an adjustment. Okay, 23 minutes. Maybe I'll come around to it. Yeah, so that's the kind of methodology for me right now with shadow work, is silence and solitude. Thanks, Benjamin. Literally, I sit. For me, that it all starts with posture. So I'm trying to create a sitting posture that is very upright and alert, but also relaxed. And then I'll do a number of things to kind of calm my mind. And typically that's just focusing my attention on something, whether it's the breath or something that's going to bring me a really therapeutic mental state. And then I can kind of, as the hamster wheel in my mind starts going, I can bring it back to that. And eventually the mind just kind of calms down, almost like a dog on a leash. If you just hold him there for a little while, even if he's crazy, eventually he'll kind of calm down and sit. And so that's the experience usually of calming my mind. and then I'm able to do certain things to observe parts of my personality, or things that have happened during the day that I can kind of just observe really cleanly and clearly. This also, I mean, if I get into some kind of argument or fight with a loved one, whether it's family or friends or Larissa, I was actually just talking to Wes about this today. I'm at a space now where I can pick up on it pretty quickly. And then I'm practicing, like, once I realize that I've lost my kind of center, and I've lost that space inside myself that's gracious and kind and loving. Once I can understand what's happening and see what's happening, then I can start to do certain things to kind of calm myself down. But I can't actually see how my shadows are coming into play when I've got anger going on, or when I'm pulled into some kind of sense experience, and I'm, so to speak, high on some kind of sensory experience, or I'm deluded by alcohol, or deluded by a whole number of things. Like, once I can, like, sober up, so to speak, whether it's, a literal substance that's keeping me from being able to see clearly, or some kind of mental state, such as anger, that is keeping me from seeing clearly. Once I can calm myself down, then I can start to really see my shadows. And so that's kind of practically what shadow work looks like for me. And it definitely happens on my mat when I'm sitting, but the kind of groundedness of that is my intimate relationships with people that I love, where I kind of check how I'm processing through all of that, and really a lot of the content that I bring into my sitting practice comes from the shadows that can come up, and the parts of my personality that I would rather not look at and hide from in my relationships. So yeah, that's me. That's what it looks like for me. This is a kind of risky thing for me to talk about, and so I'm gonna try to not go into heavy detail. But me and my friend David had a long conversation about this interesting dynamic between the mentally insane, whether that's considered schizophrenia or multiple personality, which that's my understanding of schizophrenia, or anything that the psychological community deems insane, and then puts a label on, and then those people are kind of categorized on that label by experiencing certain mental situations. I think we have a lot of opportunity in society, and especially the religious circles, of learning how to integrate those people successfully into society. There's this really brilliant quote that I probably talk about at least once a week, Um, I'm forgetting the guy's name, but he wrote A Hero with a Thousand Faces and Pathways to Bliss. Benjamin said, "We all mad here." Yeah, we are. But he has this phrase where he says, not the insane. Oh, of course, when I'm trying to remember it, I can't remember it. I want to quote this right, so I'm not going to try to mess it up. Okay. It's Joseph Campbell. He says, oh, wow. I thought he said the psychotic. This quote, I will figure out what the direct quote is, but this quote has him say, which I've never read it this way: the schizophrenic is drowning in the same waters in which the mystic swims in with delight. The quote that I had heard was the psychotic drowns in the same waters in which the mystic swims in with delight. I think it's really interesting that that specific quote singles out the schizophrenic, but I like the terminology of the psychotic because it's a larger umbrella of people that are deemed psychotic, and the idea is that there's really no difference in the experience between the mystic and the psychotic. The mystic has just learned how to self-adjust to the norms of society. And so to bring this into the conversation of shadow work, the kind of challenge for someone that hasn't learned the coping skills or the means to adjust to normal society, that has these really pronounced quote unquote psychotic experiences, they don't yet have the help or the knowledge or the wisdom to integrate these different parts of themselves in a way that is functional. Whereas if you really sit with someone who doesn't just identify as a mystic and call themselves a mystic or wear the mystic brand and create a whole nother ego structure out of mysticism, but actually lives a life of leaning into uncertainty, leaning into this self-honesty of realizing I don't really know much. When I'm really honest, like, I believe certain things, but what I know isn't necessarily all the things that I believe, and kind of leans into the mystery of that, and usually has gone on some kind of internal journey and has had some kind of experience that has opened them up to spaces within themselves that are impossible to really fully communicate with language and intellect, and the rational mind can only hold so much of it, so much of those experiences. Those people have the same sorts of experiences that we would normally deem as psychotic. They have figured out how to move through life in a way that has integrated those parts of themselves, and has been able to swim in that water with delight instead of drown in it. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for us to approach that community with a really different lens, really ultimately a lens of compassion, and not throwing away the things that we've learned in psychology, but kind of holding them open-handed and saying, like, maybe there's a lot more going on here than I am able to fully realize. I think anyways, the reason why we haven't done this yet is it forces us to go on that journey when we hold the space for that other person. And that journey for most people is really scary. And I don't think I know anyone who was like, I want to be a mystic. I'm going to be a mystic. And like had a real, sincere, genuine journey into mysticism. The people that I know that I would say have either mystical tendencies or just have found themselves full on in that space were either born into it or pushed into it or fell into it. They didn't climb a ladder into mysticism. They will all tell you that it was more of a falling than it was a climbing, and it was more of a descent into that space than it was any kind of mental ascent into enlightenment. And continues to be. It's something we kind of let go into, not something we climb up into. So I think that goes hand in hand with shadow work really well. And maybe when the topic comes up, I'll have more to say on it. But I felt like I could kind of put those two things together. Yeah, if Benjamin or Dinesh is still on and has, or anyone else, looks like there's two people on, has any feedback for me or thoughts, let me know. Otherwise, we'll set anchor there. I forgot about the plant yesterday. I'm so sorry. It definitely, for me anyways, makes this a lot more enjoyable, having the peace lily. Yeah. I guess while I'm waiting, I'll say Dark Night of the Soul. Yeah. I was introduced to shadow work through, it wasn't called that, but through a inner healing Christian ministry. And then I was thrust into authentic shadow work through a really painful, broken relationship where I had a choice to either be really bitter and victimize myself and scapegoat her, or own the fact that I was really broken and I was the common denominator in my broken relationships, and I needed to shine some light in some spaces that I didn't realize was important to. And so that was 6-7 years ago, and it's been one of the most important parts of my life since. Yeah. Dark Night of the Soul. I'm at 38 minutes. Yeah. Dark Night of the Soul. I mean, it's a beautiful book. No one really knows the author. And it's also an experience that I would say every person who has a real experience of mysticism goes through. And the way I would communicate it about, it's when all our forms and structures that we've been depending on and relying on for understanding reality don't work anymore. And we've been clinging to them really hard and they're not working. And so we have to let all that stuff go. And for a little while, we're just in this suspended space of suffering until we can find an internal space within to kind of stay with and go through the unpacking of what parts of our worldview and our understanding of self do we want to keep, and which parts weren't working, and we start to go through that deeply personal journey of leaving the dark night of the soul and moving into the mystery of being and reality and experience. And if that's not shadow work, I don't know what is. I mean, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it when you really start to unpack it. Well, thanks for bringing that up, Benjamin. All right, I'll anchor this little boat there, and enjoyed this. Hope this made a little bit of sense. If you completely disagree with me, please let me know. I'm kind of upset because no one's been like, you're wrong, or you're completely off base, out of whack. I'm open to it all. Or if you have another angle on it, please share. I do this live and share these for the feedback. I want it. I like the engagement. So anyways, I love y'all. Have a beautiful Wednesday, and hopefully I'll see you